Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Titiksha Kubal and I'm a psychiatrist by profession. I was asked to give a brief introduction and I would say that instead of surviving on air, food and water, I survive on gardens, books and coffees. I'm a student by nature and love to learn. So I would like to thank Indian Society of Landscape Architects for giving me this beautiful opportunity of learning more about nature and mental well-being. I would also like to thank Devyani Deshmukh for trusting my abilities to unravel these mysteries of nature and mind connection. I truly loved exploring these natural reserves and unearthing the secrets of health, well-being and longevity. Though we know it inherently, it is evidence that consolidates our beliefs and helps us gain understanding. Hoping to give you some insights from my presentation. Thank you.
I would be discussing nature for mental well-being. As per Dr. Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, most of us are visual learners. So I have tried to engage that intellect with a lot of pictures in my presentation for better understanding. Though I work as a psychiatrist, last few years I have ventured into being a wellness physician. Here I try to practice and preach healthy, natural therapies, including nutritional therapies and physical therapies for reversal of lifestyle diseases like diabetes, obesity, ischemic disease, and regenerative therapies for spinal degenerative diseases, osteoarthritis. I even prescribe basic homemade natural ingredients of food for fitness and weight management, detox and anti-aging. This is how I came close to utilizing healing powers of nature for physical well-being. I was really excited to explore further into healing of nature for mental well-being. Aristotle once said, "Walks in the open air clarified the mind." Similarly, Darwin, Tesla, Einstein walked in the gardens to help them think. Writers take a walk for their writer's blocks. Poets seek nature to feel inspired. Nature does bring out some hidden potential of the brain, which is otherwise locked. How does nature do it? Is it by making the brain feel comfortable, secure, happy, relaxed, or all together can be called as well-being? Where is this well-being felt in our brain? The colorful fibers and their connections here is where we see, hear, feel, smell, taste, think, create, imagine, speak, emote, react, regulate body growth, body temperature, hunger, thirst, sex drives, do our digestion, metabolism, bowel bladder control, pain, pleasure, muscle tone, movement, coordination, sleep, and the basic heart rate and respiration. Also here is our mind, the association of all these connections, the awareness, which analyzes, processes, infers. These numbers and colors of fibers are not even 1% of the reality which can be there in the brain. Thus, brain is an amazing software handling three complicated systems: mind, brain, and body. Individually, as well as their interaction, their repair and regeneration. It's a fabulous machine which runs on two different fuels, electrical energy and chemical energy, and each causing a cascade of reactions like electrical energy initiating chemical processes and chemical energy creating electrical potentials, finally resulting in the most amazing concept of being alive. Obviously then, the fuel matters. The fuel we should put in to this fabulous machine should be good quality, good amount, and most importantly, the correct fuel for this machine to work well. If this mind body brain unit machine is put in with a fuel like this, then definitely this machine is going to exhaust faster. But if this machine is put with a fuel like this, then it might get some respite and it may be able to relax, which may be what we call well-being. Let's see historically what has been happening. Surprisingly, in 400 BC, Hippocrates wrote, "Disease is being away from laws of nature," and hence recovery was to be the work of nature, only supplemented by medical aid. Natures are the healers of disease. Yes, natures heal, but they do take time. And because of this time factor, all these years we thought time is the best healer. I may not be exaggerating today by saying time rather kills. If you follow a type A lifestyle of always needing to be on the go, running on the arms of the clock, it kills you. If you follow your office schedules, shift duties, night duties, and disturb the body clock called the circadian rhythm, the time kills you. Further historic evidence we have with Cyrus the Great, who around 2005 years ago built gardens for relaxation in the busy capital of Persia. Paracelsus in the 16th century gave voice to same institution when he wrote, "Art of healing comes from nature, not from the physician." Then we have the first natural healing center in 1885, developed in Bled, Slovenia by Arnold Rickley. Arnold Rickley is the founder of naturopathy and hydropathic healing. He established this center in Bled, which is considered today the birthplace of natural healing. He considered water good for health, air better for health, sun best for health, which we today realize the importance of vitamin D. His treatments included light and air huts, long walks in the meadows and mountains. Thus, if we know and always knew that nature helped and healed right from 400 BC to 1885, what happened then? How did we forget the nature's role in healing? Maybe the novelty of modernization made us forget it. But soon, around 1970s, people realized the importance of nature. And that is how I came across, during my exploration of a lot of research work done in the field, and saw that there were many perspectives. As I went through research, I found so many postulates, so many hypotheses which explained how and why nature helped us or healed us. Some of these perspectives are like brain's internal milieu, like the structure and function of the brain gets altered, neurotransmitters are altered, hormones, nutrition, cleanup or detox. Brain inputs and responses are altered, like the calibration of senses, body physiology, like the blood pressure, heart rate, the physical activity, the emotional burden, the cognitive stimulation, and more. The brain functions like attention restoration, stress reduction, problem solving, soft fascination, less inhibition, flow states, restoration of fuel, rest to prefrontal cortex, astonishment or the awe factor, in-sync processing speed, mindfulness, default network brain, and right brain. So, after going through so many such perspectives and more of our routine assumptions like nature benefit assumptions, or feel good because of the change or out of routine, feel good because of removal of bad, technology overdose, nature deficit disorder or indooritis, We also have certain more principles like power of the subconscious mind from the hypnosis point of view, connectedness of the collective unconscious from the Carl Jung's therapies, oneness of the Advaita philosophy with no boundaries between us and the nature, endurance of the Buddhism and the Jainism. So after going through so many perspectives about how, why nature has been able to heal us and bring about well-being, I decided to organize my thoughts into 3 different groups. Thus, I have made 3 sections and I'll be discussing one after the other. To begin with, we'll talk about nature of mental well-being, wherein I will be discussing what is mental well-being, what are the components of mental well-being, the neuroanatomy of mental well-being, where in the brain exactly do we feel good, neurochemistry of mental well-being, what makes our brain make us feel good, and the psychology of mental well-being, or also called as psychological well-being, which concerns the mind. So what is mental well-being? Mental health is not just the absence of mental disorder. It is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his own potential, can cope with the stresses of life, can work productively, fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. And how does it affect? The influencers. Influencers as in what we talked about, fuel. If this machine, brain, body, mind, gets good fuel, it works better. What is this fuel here? The biological is the food we eat. Psychological is the thoughts. Social and environmental factors and their interactions all serve as fuel for this machine, and we also call them influencers. Where does it act on the brain? The neuroanatomy, where the emotional brain lies. So basically the brain has 4 lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe and temporal lobe. Then we have the cerebellum, which works for movement and coordination, medulla, which has the respiratory center, the important one, and the limbic system, which is important for our emotional thoughts as well as feelings. Here we have the pain center, the fear center, the memory center, and of course the happiness center. So where is this happiness center exactly? Happiness center of the brain, or the precuneus, is in the parietal lobe. Wataru Sato, a researcher at Kyoto University in Japan, through fMRI studies discovered that the combination of positive emotions and satisfaction derived from life events had an impact on the precuneus, which is a part of the parietal lobe, here in green. So if you see the functions, the basic functions of precuneus, of mental imagery, or self-reflective awareness, or attention in space, or visuospatial operations, you will realize why we feel good here when especially we are exposed to nature, where we have vast expanse of space. Also, precuneus is important in response inhibition to stop the executive functions which are running all the time in our brain. This is also an important function because it helps the brain relax. 2 of its another special features are it has the highest glucose supply so that it can be awake all throughout. It is also the core node of default mode network that is activated during resting consciousness, in which people do not engage intentionally in sensory or motor activity, but it is like when we are daydreaming or staring blindly at empty spaces or at nature. To collect, recollect and summarize, we saw that there was awareness of nature's healing ability even in 400 BC, but it got lost somewhere in the process of fancy modernization. We saw brain's functions and its complexities and what all factors can affect the brain-body-mind unit. We saw mind-brain-body act as a unit and that its equilibrium gets disturbed by change in inputs to any one of them or by the change in environment, and thus leading to permutations and combinations of factors affecting this equilibrium. And hence, many perspectives existent, studied, and some even not yet discovered that can affect the well-being of this mind-brain-body unit and in turn our well-being. Lastly, we have also tried to see the neurobiology, various brain centers of emotions, and finally reached the happiness center. Leaving you with this happy node on the happy mode of your brain with the thought that everyone has this center, so no one can stop you from being happy. Thank you.